The final item is item G2H. This is an added item based on a meeting that Dr. Yvette Richardson and I had in Birmingham on Tuesday evening. I want to share a few comments before I go to the resolution to put this into context. Last Thursday, I began to receive phone calls from concerned citizens, leaders, board members from Birmingham about a called meeting that had been called for Friday afternoon, April the 6th at 5 p.m., which was actually Good Friday, and it was called late on Thursday. And a concern, not so much about the meeting, but the fact that several members were not going to be able to be there. The fact that it was an emergency called meeting. As state superintendent, anytime there's an emergency meeting, I feel the responsibility to inquire as to what that emergency is so we can offer whatever resources and support is needed. As I looked into that, I discovered that there were no children or people involved in that called meeting. It was actually a meeting to discuss the superintendent's contract. So I reached out to several board members asking, since I could not be there, we had family plans on Good Friday, so I asked if the meeting could be delayed until its regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday. I did not hear back until late Friday that it had been canceled. Very thankful for that. So it gave me a chance, along with Dr. Richardson, to attend the meeting on Tuesday. And I made it very clear to the board president that I was attending strictly as an interested observer, because as state superintendent, while I have absolute respect for local authority of local school boards, as a state board and as state superintendent, we do have a responsibility for oversight of each and every school system. So I went strictly as an interested observer so I could better understand what the urgency of the situation was related to the superintendent's contract or anything else that came up. As the meeting progressed, the issue of the superintendent's contract, at least in my perspective, became far less of the concern for me, but rather the operation of the school board. Because as I observed this meeting, it appeared that most of the concerns were actually between board members, to the point of accusations of ethics violations and open meeting law violations and questioning contractual agreements. That became my major concern. I'm also concerned about the superintendent, but it's really the functioning of the school board. And there's some urgency to this for me because in any local school system, the next 3 months, some of the most crucial decisions that have to be made in a school system have to be made in terms of budget, in terms of personnel, in terms of operational costs for the next year. So as a state superintendent, representing you, I realized that we had a responsibility to respond to these accusations that came up. By the close of the meeting, actually several of the Birmingham City board members reached out and said, please help us if you can. So, which brings us to the resolution that I have before you today, and I'd like to share that with you if I could. Sir. Sure.
I would just like to thank the people from Birmingham who are here this morning. It was very enlightening to come to the meeting. I have visited many of these schools and I have seen improvements. Surprising, disheartening, but our major goal, and I want to thank Dr. Bice for coming with me, was to see how the State Department of Education could serve as a positive role to help the Birmingham City school system. It was obvious that community overall support is there. When you have 3 floors full of people, to the extent that you had a flat screen television on each floor, letting people know what was going on says a lot. And I just want to thank you for being there. Mr. Stewart teased me yesterday about the paper, the picture that they had of me in the paper, because Dr. Bice had told me we were there as observers, and that's exactly what I was doing. However, at a certain point, someone said something that hit me a certain way, and before I knew it, I was looking like someone from another planet. I appreciate what you and your staff and the board, I've asked you for your support, are gonna help us do, because we have an opportunity in Birmingham that we've never had before. With Career Tech, the academies and the programs that he's bringing in, we have an opportunity that we've never had before. So I just wanna thank you, and I apologize, Mr. Stewart, please don't say anything about that picture again, for that picture. But I only want to say the best in Birmingham, and I appreciate those of you this morning who are here. Thank you.
So the resolution I'd like to present goes as follows. Resolution for an investigative review of the governance of the Birmingham City Board of Education. Whereas the Alabama State Superintendent of Education has authority under rules and regulations promulgated by the Alabama State Board of Education to review actions and orders of city and county boards of education of their superintendents in matters relating to finance and otherwise seriously affecting the educational interests. And whereas upon such review, the state superintendent has the power to determine from the facts the just and proper disposition of the matter and to render binding orders with respect thereto. And whereas the state superintendent is further authorized and required to interpret and enforce the school laws, rules, and regulations of the state board, and to decide without expense to the parties concerned all controversies and disputes regarding the proper administration of the public schools. And whereas the Birmingham City Board of Education has over the course of recent weeks and months engaged in a pattern of decision-making, action, and inaction that has impeded or prevented implementation of plans, initiatives, and programs designed to meet the Birmingham Board's financial and fiduciary obligations under state law, and to ensure the provision of appropriate educational services to its 25,000 students. And whereas these actions and decisions have engendered internal acrimony and paralysis, counterproductive litigation, and physical altercations between Birmingham Board officials, public allegations that Birmingham Board members have violated the Alabama Open Meetings Law, and unabated, unfavorable news media coverage. And whereas these circumstances have eroded public and parental confidence in the Birmingham school system, have created and compounded community division and controversy, and have threatened to exacerbate a long-term trend of declining enrollment in the Birmingham school system. And whereas Birmingham civic, community, business, and governmental leaders, as well as members of the Birmingham Board itself, have called on the state board to invoke its statutory authority to investigate and review the actions and decisions of the Birmingham Board that have caused this crisis of confidence described above, to implement such corrective actions as may be necessary to rectify the adverse effects thereof, and to eliminate the impediments to orderly and effective decision-making that have been created thereby. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Alabama State Board of Education as follows. The state superintendent is authorized and directed to investigate, review, and resolve by appropriate order all controversies and matters described above, coming under his jurisdiction by virtue of Alabama Code 16-3-27, 16-4-4, and 16-4-8. Said investigation and review to be conducted in accordance with the procedures prescribed therefore in the corresponding provisions of the Alabama Administrative Code. 2, in accordance with the aforementioned statutes and regulations, notice of the state superintendent's review and investigation, as well as his finding and orders based thereupon, shall be provided to the state board, the Birmingham Board, and to law enforcement authorities if and as appropriate. And 3, nothing in this resolution should be construed to preclude or limit the exercise of additional supervisory, investigatory, or decision-making authority conferred on the state superintendent or the state board under the aforementioned statutes or regulations or any law, including but not limited to educational accountability legislation and corresponding state regulations. Done this 12th day of April, 2012.
So,
I have a motion by Dr. Griffin, have a second by Ms. Mary Scott Hunter. Discussion? I had 2 seconds. Discussion? Hearing and seeing none, those in favor, raise your hand. The resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you. As we move forward in the superintendent's report. I'm very pleased